They say knowledge is power, but that's not true. Knowledge means nothing if you can't see. Most people don't see the world as it is. They see it as they wish it to be. And that illusion is where their power dies. Because the world doesn't reward dreamers. It rewards observers, the ones who notice what others ignore, who listen to what's not said, who can read a man's hunger behind his smile and his fear behind his confidence. That's the dark power Machiavelli understood. The ability to see what others can't, to perceive the hidden forces moving beneath every word, every alliance, every act of virtue. Most people react to what's visible. The wise act on what's hidden. They don't chase truth, they map it. They don't seek fairness, they seek leverage. And when everyone else is lost in noise, they move in silence straight to power. Because perception isn't just awareness, it's advantage. Every blind spot you uncover becomes a weapon. Every illusion you shatter becomes control. Machiavelli knew that seeing clearly is the rarest form of strength. He wrote that the prince who knows men as they truly are can rule them without ever raising his voice. So the question is not, what do you know? It's, what can you see? In this video, we'll break down how to develop that vision, how to see the motives behind masks, how to read the world through Machiavelli's eyes, and how to use that awareness to command power in silence. By the end, you won't just look at people, you'll see them. And once you do, they'll never be able to hide from you again. Power doesn't begin with strength. It begins with sight. Before a ruler commands men, he studies them. Before a strategist moves pieces, he learns the board. Every action that reshapes the world begins first in silent observation. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. While others chased influence through charm or violence, he studied the anatomy of power, how people think, how they lie, how they reveal themselves without knowing. He realized that the world doesn't hide its secrets. It exposes them to anyone patient enough to watch. Every man reveals himself in small ways, the words he repeats, the people he flatters, the emotions he cannot control. Most are too busy performing to notice that they're being read. But the few who master the art of observation don't just see, they decode. They see the cracks beneath confidence. They see the hesitation before betrayal. They see which men hunger for approval and which ones fear being forgotten. And once you see these things, control becomes effortless. Because manipulation doesn't require lies, it only requires understanding. If you know what a man wants, you can predict him. If you can predict him, you can guide him. And if you can guide him, you own him without him ever realizing it. That's why Machiavelli said, "Men are so simple and so much creatures of habit that he who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will let himself be deceived." It wasn't cynicism, it was clarity. He didn't invent human weakness, he simply saw it. In his time, observation was survival. The Florentine court was a nest of smiling assassins, alliances formed at dinner and dissolved by dawn. Those who acted blindly didn't last. But those who observed, who could read the slightest shift in tone, the faintest tremor in loyalty, held power without needing armies. The same truth applies now. Your world may look different: offices instead of palaces, screens instead of scrolls, but the psychology is identical. Those who watch rule those who speak. Because when everyone else is desperate to be seen, the wise stay silent and see. Observation gives you what emotion never can: clarity. It teaches you when to move, when to wait, when to let others destroy themselves. It turns chaos into a map of opportunity. Most people rush to act. The powerful rush to understand. And that's the difference between a reaction and a strategy. To see the world as it is, not as it appears, requires discipline. It means noticing what others overlook and accepting truths that others deny. It means learning to see not just faces, but patterns. Because once you can read patterns, you stop playing the game. You start writing it. Every person wears a mask. Some wear it to hide fear. Others wear it to gain favor. But no one walks through life uncovered. Machiavelli understood that the world runs on appearances. People spend more energy managing perception than seeking truth. They pretend to be virtuous, loyal, selfless, because power rewards the image, not the essence. And the tragedy is that most never notice the performance, because they're too busy performing themselves. But the few who can see behind the mask hold the keys to every interaction. They know that character isn't revealed in words, but in patterns. How someone behaves when no one is watching. How they treat those who can't benefit them. How they react when denied the thing they crave most. The mask cracks under pressure. That's when the truth leaks out through anger, envy, or sudden silence. Machiavelli studied these fractures in men the way a physician studies disease. He understood that deception isn't perfect. It always leaves fingerprints. When he served in the courts of Florence, he learned that every gesture meant something. A delayed greeting, a forced smile, a compliment given too quickly. Each was a thread that, when pulled, unraveled an entire intention. And from those tiny details, he could read the landscape of ambition more clearly than from any proclamation or promise. To see people as they are, you must stop listening to what they say and start observing what they protect. Every lie hides a desire. Every act of virtue hides a motive. And the more elaborate the disguise, the more fragile the truth beneath it. The modern world hasn't changed that law, it's only digitized it. Now, the masks are profiles, the smiles are filters, and the performances are endless. But the principle remains. The image exists to conceal the insecurity beneath. And if you can read the insecurity, you can predict the behavior. The man who needs validation will betray to keep attention. The one who fears humiliation will attack to defend ego. The one who seeks to appear good will sacrifice truth to preserve his image. These are not flaws, they're levers. Machiavelli didn't despise human nature, he accepted it. And that acceptance made him dangerous. Because once you stop expecting honesty, you start seeing clearly. Once you stop demanding virtue, you start recognizing weakness. And once you can recognize weakness, you can use it quietly, precisely, without force. To read masks is to see the architecture of human behavior. And once you see that structure, you don't have to destroy it. You just have to know where to push. Most people are predictable because they build their lives around the masks they wear. But the observer, the Machiavellian mind sees the mask, studies it, and smiles. Because he knows the truth. The mask is never the protection they think it is. It's the handle by which they can be moved. The greatest blindness isn't the absence of sight. It's the refusal to see what's uncomfortable. Most people aren't deceived by others, they're deceived by themselves. They build illusions because reality is too heavy, too complicated, too cruel. They tell themselves stories about fairness, justice, loyalty, love, because those stories make the world bearable. But power doesn't live in comfort. It lives in clarity. Machiavelli understood that truth is not kind. He wrote that a ruler must learn how not to be good, not because evil is preferable, but because goodness, when blind, is suicidal. He saw what others couldn't bear to admit, that men will betray when afraid, that loyalty dissolves in opportunity, that virtue often hides ambition. To see these truths is to strip away the illusions that protect the weak. But seeing clearly comes with a cost. When you stop believing in appearances, the world becomes colder. You realize that much of what people call morality is merely strategy, that most alliances are transactional, that even love, in many cases, is negotiation disguised as devotion. The truth can make you lonely, but it also makes you free. The one who sees without illusion can no longer be manipulated by false virtue. They stop expecting fairness and start studying power. They stop demanding honesty and start recognizing intent. And because they no longer mistake performance for principle, they navigate chaos without being consumed by it. Illusions are comforting cages. They make slaves feel safe. But Machiavelli chose the harder freedom of perception. He refused to see the world as he wanted it to be. He chose to see it as it is raw, conflicted, and ruled by fear and desire. To live like that today requires courage. It means watching people lie to themselves and resisting the temptation to join them. It means being surrounded by emotion and not letting it cloud your analysis. It means accepting that truth is rarely beautiful, but it is always useful. Look at history. Every fallen leader, every failed movement, every ruined empire collapsed for the same reason: illusion. They believed their people loved them more than they feared them. They believed their allies were loyal, without incentive. They believed the future would mirror the past. And when reality arrived, they couldn't adapt. The Machiavellian mind survives because it never confuses illusion for truth. It assumes betrayal, expects selfishness, and plans accordingly. That's not pessimism, it's preparation. To see the shadow of truth is to hold the world in your hands without ever being surprised by it. You stop asking, why would they do this? You already know, because you've seen the patterns. You've studied the masks. And now, the darkness no longer blinds you. It guides you. The greatest strategies are born in silence. Not in meetings, not in speeches, not in noise, but in the stillness of observation. Because the one who watches longest sees furthest. Machiavelli believed that action without understanding is suicide. He watched powerful men fall not because they lacked strength, but because they moved before they understood the terrain. They mistook speed for intelligence. They confused movement with progress. And so, they attacked what they didn't yet comprehend. The silent observer, however, never moves first. He studies, he collects, he waits. To others, his silence looks like weakness. But in truth, it's the preparation that turns knowledge into dominance. Every man reveals his strategy through impatience. Those who can't bear uncertainty rush to act. They expose their motives through their speed, their fear, their desire to be seen doing something. But the one who waits, who can tolerate silence, learns everything before lifting a single finger. Observation turns chaos into data. It lets you see not just what people do, but why they do it. And when you understand why, you can predict the next move. Machiavelli said that fortune favors the prepared mind, not the strongest, not the loudest, but the one who sees patterns before they form. Every kingdom, every company, every relationship is a battlefield of perception. The person who observes controls the tempo. They know when to strike and when to withdraw. They know who will break under pressure and who will beg to be rescued. Because while others react to surface events, the observer reads the hidden causes. In Florence, Machiavelli learned that information was more powerful than armies. A single well-placed insight could collapse an entire alliance. A whisper of truth could create panic in a court full of lies. He understood that silence, strategic, patient silence, is a form of power. It keeps others guessing, it breeds uncertainty, and uncertainty is control. In the modern world, silence still terrifies people. They fear not knowing what you're thinking. They fill the gaps with projection, assumption, paranoia, and in that panic, they reveal themselves. Every word they speak to fill your silence becomes a confession. That's why the observer rarely loses, because he fights wars that others don't even know have begun. He lets them speak, act, reveal, and only then does he move. By the time they realize what's happening, their own noise has trapped them. Observation is not passivity. It's precision. It's the discipline of letting your enemies write their own downfall while you quietly take notes. When you master observation, you no longer chase advantage, you create it. You no longer fight for position, you design it. And in a world that worships noise, your silence becomes the most dangerous weapon of all. Power never stands still. It moves in silence, shifting between hands, changing faces, hiding behind words. Most people see only titles and ranks. They think authority is official, visible, announced. But real power is quiet. It exists in influence, not position, in persuasion, not command. And if you can't see where it truly lives, you'll always serve someone who can. Machiavelli spent his life surrounded by powerful men, princes, popes, generals, each believing he ruled by divine right or destiny. But Machiavelli knew better. He saw that the throne doesn't grant power, it merely displays it. Real control belongs to those who understand the hierarchy. Beneath the hierarchy, the invisible structure of dependence, fear, and ambition that props every leader up. He learned to map power the way a cartographer maps land. Every favor exchanged, every promise whispered, every rivalry disguised as friendship, these were coordinates on a political map. He understood that power isn't about who commands, but about who can withdraw what others depend on. And the one who knows what everyone depends on never needs to raise his voice. To read power, you must first stop looking at appearances. The man in charge is rarely the man in control. Often, the loudest figure is the puppet, not the puppeteer. Look instead for the quiet one, the advisor, the confidant, the person everyone consults before acting. Power hides behind proximity. The same pattern repeats in every system, in governments, corporations, relationships. Someone always holds invisible leverage, the ability to say no when others can't. Find that person, and you've found the true center of gravity. Machiavelli taught that the wise must study not just what men do, but what they must do. Every man is bound by necessity, by what he fears losing or what he cannot resist. That necessity is the leash by which he is led. Once you identify it, you can predict his every move. Modern hierarchies are just as fragile as those of Florence. Your workplace, your politics, your social world, they all run on the same invisible currents of need and ambition. The one who can read those currents becomes untouchable, because they see every outcome before it happens. They understand who will betray, who will submit, who will crumble under the weight of uncertainty. The art of reading power is the art of reading dependency. Power flows toward those who need nothing, and away from those who need approval, comfort, or validation. That is why detachment is not just a virtue, it's a weapon. The less you depend, the clearer you see. And the clearer you see, the more others depend on you. Machiavelli knew that control doesn't come from force, it comes from comprehension. When you understand what drives men, you can move them without touching them. And when you can move them, you no longer chase power. Power comes to you. To rule the game, you must stop reacting to it. Power doesn't belong to the one who moves fastest. It belongs to the one who moves last, because he already knows every move that came before. That is the essence of the predator's mind, anticipation. Machiavelli understood that true strength is foresight. He observed that most men act from impulse. They are driven by emotion, vanity, or fear, rushing to secure advantage before they've even defined the battlefield. The predator never does this. He waits until the field is clear, the pieces revealed, the patterns exposed. Only then does he strike with precision so quiet that his victim calls it fate. Anticipation is the highest form of vision. It's not simply seeing what is, but seeing what will be. It's the ability to read desire before it becomes action, to sense weakness before it shows, to know when silence means hesitation and when hesitation means opportunity. Every man reveals the future in small ways, their habits, their obsessions, their fears. The predator watches, collects, calculates. By the time others realize what's happening, he's already 2 steps ahead, moving through consequences they haven't yet imagined. Machiavelli wrote that, "Fortune is a river, it floods the unprepared and rewards those who build channels for its flow." That's anticipation. It's not luck, it's preparation, disguised as intuition. The predator doesn't predict events by magic, he predicts them by attention. He listens longer, speaks less, and connects what others dismiss as coincidence. He doesn't fight the storm, he reads the wind before it forms. Anticipation also means restraint. The weak can't wait. They act from hunger, from the desperate need to prove themselves. But patience is power in disguise. Every second you wait while others rush gives you more data, more control, more leverage. Let them burn their energy. Let them expose their tactics. When the moment finally arrives, one decisive move is worth more than 100 desperate ones. The predator's mind is cold, but not cruel. It's detached, analytical, focused on patterns rather than emotions. He doesn't seek destruction for pleasure, he seeks victory through understanding. He knows that the best conquest leaves no trace of violence, only silence and inevitability. Those who fall to him often think it was their idea. In modern life, This mindset is just as lethal. The one who anticipates trends, moods, and reactions controls narratives before they're spoken. While others scramble to adapt, he's already positioned. In conversation, in business, in politics, the same law applies. He who can see a moment before it happens owns it. To anticipate is to escape the chaos of the present. You stop being a participant and become the architect. You no longer chase control, you design it. And when you can do that, you become what Machiavelli revered most: a ruler of consequence, not of chance. In the end, every form of power comes down to one thing: clarity. Not courage, not wealth, not strength. Clarity. The ability to see the world as it truly is, unfiltered by illusion, untouched by fear. That was Machiavelli's true genius. Not his cunning, not his ruthlessness, but his vision. He saw through the moral fog that blinded others. He saw that behind every speech was ambition, behind every alliance was calculation, and behind every act of mercy was strategy. He looked at the world and refused to lie to himself about what he saw. Most people cannot do this. They prefer beautiful illusions to uncomfortable truths. They want to believe in fairness, loyalty, decency, and when reality violates those beliefs, they call it betrayal. But Machiavelli would say, it's not betrayal when a man acts according to his nature. It's just truth revealing itself. And if you can accept that, you stop being surprised by human behavior. You start mastering it. Seeing reality as power means accepting that people will always act for themselves. They will flatter when weak, betray when threatened, and justify every move as virtue. You can hate that truth, or you can use it. Because when you see people as they are, you can move through them like water moves through cracks, quietly, inevitably, shaping everything it touches. That's the Machiavellian vision. Not cruelty, but comprehension. It's the rare clarity that makes manipulation unnecessary. Why force what you can predict? Why argue when you already understand how someone will respond? Once you can see clearly, the game stops being emotional. It becomes mechanical, precise, elegant, efficient. To live this way is to stand apart from the chaos of others. While they drown in opinion and outrage, you see structure. While they chase approval, you study control. While they react, you remain still, watching the patterns form, deciding where to intervene and where to disappear. And because you see reality without denial, you can bend it without breaking yourself. Machiavelli's lessons were never about becoming evil. They were about becoming awake, because only those who see reality can shape it. Everyone else just suffers it. In your time, this vision is more valuable than ever. The world is louder, faster, more emotional. Every system from politics to media to business feeds on blindness and reaction. They want you distracted, outraged, obedient. They want you to look without seeing. But if you train your mind to observe instead of absorb, to understand instead of react, you rise above it. You stop being controlled by the illusion and start controlling it. That is the dark power Machiavelli discovered. The one who sees clearly holds every advantage. Because when truth becomes visible, manipulation fails. When motives become transparent, deception dies. And when you can see the world as it is, you no longer need to fight for power. You are power.